Good evening, guys. I don't know whether this guy boils your urine and your blood as much as he boils mine, because he should actually do that, because this man is evil and vile, and has come out again recently the other day and said this, guys. So after that statement from, I went on the internet and had a look around at global warming, especially the effects of electricity, etc. on global warming. And this is what it said, guys. So I think he's lying through his teeth again, ladies and gentlemen, because how have we gone from don't boil the kettle too much, switch every light off in the room as you leave it, don't put your washing machine on too long, because we need to conserve the electricity, because it's melting all the ice caps in the North Pole, and the sea levels are going to rise and everything if we don't cut back on the electricity we use. We've gone from that to now blatantly, openly telling you they want electric cars everywhere, with charging ports all up and down the country. You imagine how much electricity that is going to take. A lot more than a kettle or a washing machine, put it that way. And yet we're all supposed to believe this bullshit and just fall in with the plan. It's not about this global warming, ladies and gentlemen. It's about, again, taking your freedoms away from you, because they want everybody's car off them. They don't want you to be able to travel in your own conveyance wherever you want to go. These cars will be fitted. Initially, you'll be able to drive them as normal, but as it goes on, just like everything else, they'll enforce tougher laws with them. Well, tougher, not laws, because they can't put the laws in. Tougher legislation and acts. And then eventually you will go to having sat-navs in these things, where you'll put a location in and the sat-nav will say, sorry, I'm not allowed to go there, it's out of the jurisdiction for this car. In all of them. And then eventually you'll go from, you won't be driving them at all. It'll be driverless cars, where you'll punch the address you want to go to in sat-nav, and again, if you try and go too far out, the car just won't take you. That's where we're heading with electric cars, ladies and gentlemen. It's not good, and this has been planned for decades and decades. Remember last year in October, when they had Event 201, Bill and Melinda Gates. Because if that's not a man, I don't know who is. So we had Bill and Melinda in October with this Event 201, and everything, the scenario that they did to is the coronavirus. Now, isn't that funny and a good coincidence? I don't think it is, and nobody else does who's awake. We all know what's going on. Now, I'm going to play you something now. This was from 1969, warning about the communism. It's basically about America, but it's the whole world, really. So this doesn't actually just incorporate America. It incorporates the UK, Australia, Canada, all around the world, really. So you need to watch this, guys, and wake up, please.
As early as 1928, the communists declared that the racial differences among our people constituted the weakest and most vulnerable point in our social fabric. By constantly probing and straining at this one spot, they calculated that eventually the cloth could be torn apart, and that Americans could be divided, weakened, and perhaps even set against each other in open combat. We mustn't kid ourselves into thinking that the communists have placed their agitators only into the black communities. They're working both sides of the street. They want hatred, violence, and bloodshed between the races, and they don't care how they get it or whom they use, even children if necessary. Manning Johnson said black rebellion was what Moscow wanted. Bloody racial conflict would split America. During the confusion, demoralization and panic would set in. Then finally the Reds say, workers stop work. Many of them seize arms by attacking arsenals. Street fights become frequent. Under the leadership of the Communist Party, the workers organize revolutionary committees to be in command of the uprising. Armed workers seize the principal government offices, invade the residences of the president and his cabinet members, arrest them, declare the old regime abolished, establish their own power. The communists call not only for extensive chaos within the cities, but for putting to the torch every village, every forest, every field, and every barn. The plan is for raging fires from one city to the next. The reason? Well, first, there's the value of sheer destruction. Secondly, it would force us to deploy our defenses and rescue units over the widest possible area. The communists point out that as long as our police and National Guard remain concentrated, they're invincible. But if they can be forced to spread out over the entire city and into the countryside as well, then they can be picked off from ambush one by one. And the third value of massive fire to the communists is psychological. The average American, they say, soft and decadent, when he sees billows of black smoke rising from one horizon to the other, when at night the only light he has to see by is the flickering red from flames leaping into the sky, he'll become paralyzed with fear and panic. He'll run away and hide and do nothing to interfere with the guerrilla bands as they strike at the community's power centers. The Crusader explains how to set up sniper units in crowded metropolitan areas, how to manufacture jumbo Molotov cocktails, the gallon jug size, and how to mix the gasoline with certain ingredients to make it burn like napalm, how to pour gasoline into utility manholes in the streets to set fire to the main telephone cables, how to put sulfur tips from matches into air conditioning units and blow up large buildings, how to ignite gas mains and oil storage tanks. It explains how radio-controlled model airplanes can be used to fly explosive charges over heavily guarded fences into gasoline storage areas or munition stockpiles. It even calls for infiltration into the National Guard units. Revolutionaries posing as non-militants for the purpose of getting free military training and for gaining access to critical military supplies and heavy weapons. Any all-out minority revolution must create a state of crisis wherein almost all of the male population would be forced to remain in their homes to protect their property and families. The middle class is very large, but it is not accustomed to deprivation and terror. Because of its affluence, it has waxed soft. It has no stomach for massive fire, blood, and violence. The motive force behind its life drive is its endless pursuit of prestige, conspicuous consumption, and sensual pleasure. A few years of violent, sporadic, and highly destructive uprisings will set the stage for the grand finale. After the stage is properly set through protracted struggle, America could be brought to her knees in 90 days of highly organized, fierce fighting, sabotage, and massive firestorm. Ladies and gentlemen, the plans and preparations for a communist revolution of force and violence are far advanced. The organization behind these preparations has almost unlimited financial resources, and it provides both training and leadership based upon years of experience in many other countries. Our enemies are deadly serious about their task, and it's nothing short of national suicide for us to continue to ignore their plans and their progress. The violent revolution becomes of primary value to the communists to the extent to which it can be used to condition the masses psychologically to accept the non-violent revolution, which is offered supposedly as the only alternative. Hoping to avoid further violence and bloodshed, the public is to be pressured into accepting measures that will move the country gradually and legally toward communism, but without calling it that. The strategy of the proletarian revolution calls for the quiet conversion of our government into a communist regime, but under the banner of socialism. Well, what is socialism? All right, let's define it. According to the dictionary, socialism is a political concept based upon the principle of government ownership and control of property, the means of production, and the avenues of commerce. Under socialism, those who run the government, and the communists are confident that in America they eventually will be the ones who do so. Those who run the government will know who is to get something and who has to wait, and that represents control over human beings. What has all this to do with the communist revolution in America? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has everything to do with it, because the building of socialism is the communist revolution in America. It represents the process whereby our country can be moved gradually toward communism without the people even being aware of it. No matter what grievance we may have, real or imagined, no matter what national problems we may face, the communists seize upon these as excuses to build socialism. They have one and only one solution for all problems: more government, and then more and more until it's total government. And forgive me for saying it one more time, total government is communism.
So pretty strange, guys, don't you think, that that guy back in 1969, what he was saying, has got striking similarities to the way everything's playing out in front of our eyes in this day and age in 2020. And that's from like 1969. So they knew about this and they've been warning us about this, but we've just been too lapsadaisical, too lazy to keep our eyes on the ball, and now we're in where we're at. But I saw this young lady the other day on video, so I'm going to put it on the end, well, on the end of here really. I think her name's Laura Jane, speaking in Liverpool. It gave me hope that not all the youngsters are asleep. Some of them are actually very clued up, and if she can wake her generation up the same as we can try and wake our generation up, and it gives me hope that we can do this, guys, and we can do this. So just watch Laura and then I'll end it, guys.
That is not acceptable. We've been deceived, we've been failed, and so many people, young and old, have been drilled with absolute fear. And it's that fear that's been driving this situation forward. The more fearful you are, the easier you are to be controlled and manipulated. The less fearful you are, the harder it is to be. And by us being here today proves that to be true. Because it shows the people at the top of the chain that we are not afraid. We are not afraid, and we will fight until fear is overridden by strength, knowledge, and unity. Without fear, the powers that be could not control the many. They could not drive people into submission. They could not create division between the people. And they could not strip away one's ability to think for themselves. They could not achieve their agendas. And without the mainstream media, those fears could not be. As a young person, defund the BBC. As a young person, it saddens me the most to see so many of my own generation and younger deceived and living in this fear. So many do not realise just how threatened our futures are. And as young people and children, we are the main targets. We are young and ever growing, and our minds are very easy to mould, and that's been done through the likes of reality TV and the manipulative addictive, brainwashing, influential ways of social media. The powers that be, they don't want young people, especially, to know any different than what's presented to us through our phone and TV screens. They don't want us to see the real world for what it actually is. They don't want us to be able to communicate properly, to be strong-minded, and they don't want us, by any means, to be able to have our own minds. As young, growing individuals, they don't care about us at all. As young people, we always say how much that we want to change the world. And if we really want to do it, we need to start looking up and out from those screens at the real world around us. Open our eyes and empower our young minds with knowledge. Question absolutely everything from social media to mainstream media to COVID-19. On the 19th of March 2020, the government website stated that the virus was downgraded from being a high-consequence infectious disease. 4 days later, we went into lockdown. Why? The Health Secretary claims that 2 households can meet at a social distance in an outdoor public space, but not in a pub garden, even though a pub garden is an outdoor public space. In some restaurants, you must wear a mask when ordering takeout food, but not if you're ordering to sit in. But what's the difference? Are you wearing a mask because you are fearful of this virus and others around you? Or are you wearing a mask just because you've been told to in the places that you've been told to wear them out of fear of the consequences? Do you believe everything that you've been told just because you've been told it's happening or it exists or because it's for your own benefit? Or are you able to think for yourself and find out information for yourself instead of the government and the media doing it for you? There is absolutely nothing logical or straightforward about COVID-19. There is a much bigger picture to be looked at. So I would strongly encourage you all to look into the following. Number 1, mind space. From the Institute for Government, it's a document that was created in 2010 by the British Gov, which discusses how mind control is used to influence the change of behaviour in society. That's mind space. Number 2, Operation Lockstep. Operation Lockstep is part of a wider document called Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development, written by the Rockefellers in 2010. Also known as the agenda behind COVID-19, everything that has been happening around you and is set to happen in the future is written in that document. These are the people at the top of the chain who have had the ways of the world set in plan for decades. They are years ahead of time, and I strongly encourage you all to read that document and to understand why our futures are at such stake. I'd also strongly encourage the following to be looked into. UK Column News, Dr. Rashid A. Buttar, and Dr. Vernon Coleman. These are just three of the many credible, independent people out there who provide us with the truth that's been missing, who have our best interests at heart, and David Icke, and whose information does not deserve to be dismissed. It's time now, more than ever, for people of all ages everywhere to unite. We need to take back our lives and our freedoms that we deserve. We need to fight for our futures and start listening to the right people. We need to start empowering each other with knowledge, help one another to take back control of their own minds. Talk to each other, calm and collected, in ways that leaves people thinking and questioning. All of us here today, never stop speaking your truth. Continue to empower your minds with knowledge and you will attract the right people.
Can I say something really quick? Fuck the mask, forget the mask, yeah? I've torn it off, yeah?
Thank you. Keep the faith. Those who are willing to listen will listen. Because we are the 99%. We are unity. We have the real power. It all depends on how we use it. And with that in mind, I'd just like to finish on a rather inspirational story as Aesop's fable, The Bundle of Sticks. It's a story of an old man, a father to a set of sons, constantly fighting with one another. On the point of his death, the old man calls his sons to be around him to give them some advice. He asks his servants to bring forward a bundle of sticks that are all tied together. The old man then asks each of his sons to one by one attempt to break the bundle of sticks. And they each try with all their efforts, but they were all unsuccessful. The old man then orders that the bundle of sticks be untied and each son be given a single stick. When it was done, each stick was told to be broken and each stick was easily broken. The message from the old man to his sons was that individually you can easily be conquered, but together you are invincible. Union gives strength. United we stand, divided we fall.
Well, that was Laura, guys. As you can see, she's very clued up and she's aware of what's going on, and it's a pity we haven't got the masses all as clued up and as aware as she is, because if there was, we'd have this country back by now, guys, 100%. But we can do this, guys. The Constitution, like I've said all along, is the solution. Now I'm going to leave you with this. It's retyped, obviously, because if I screenshotted the original, it's not very good quality, and that's how it's retyped. But it's the excuse and the reason we have the right to do what we can do under Article 61, lawful rebellion. And it really is the way to go, because it's lawful and it's peaceful, and we can take these people down with it. So have a look at this document, guys, and I'll speak to you all soon. Stay safe, have a great weekend. Here's my hand, here's my heart. Love every single one of you. Take care. I'll speak to you all soon.